ladies and gentlemen, across our beloved Kyber Empire, it's yours truly, the Emperor, Arnold T101, the first of his name, the king of Triple B Games, the protector of the multiversal video gaming realm, the director of the video gaming division, the rightful ruler of Analderon, and we have a lot of titles here, owner of the Kyber Club on 25A for an extra Wednesday party hard. But the most important thing you need to know is you're watching Arnold Holonet News, the only news you'll ever need, because you have no other choice. Today we got some Marvel Snap. I'm gonna put parentheses, quotation marks on it, news. Some big stuff around the corner for Marvel Snap. If you hate Leader, I think you're still gonna hate him. Apparently massive nerfs are coming to Marvel Snap, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't feel like a lot of these nerfs are that massive in that regard. And some other interesting stuff that we're gonna talk about the patch is being delayed for Marvel Snap. However, they kind of posted a little early on their Korean forums the patch notes. We have here from Marvel Snap Zone on January 4th, 2023. Patch notes have been inadvertently released by the official Korean community team. Obviously not final until patch day. I wouldn't expect too much deviation going on, and I kind of agree. Usually when patch notes are like this, there might be a few new things, but generally these things are kind of solid, locked in place. But nonetheless, take it with a grain of salt until it officially comes out. The Marvel Snap Zone already translated everything to make sure, in case you don't have a protocol droid like I do, you kind of know what's going up here. Here is the quick highlights you got to know about. Artist credits for variants. I think that's kind of cool. I played some other card games, like for example, Yu-Gi-Oh, or for example, the Star Wars Destiny. It's always kind of cool just to see who made the art, because then you can start realizing, oh, I know who made that particular artwork. Orca finally added the Series 4. It's going to be a new card, kind of like Namor. It's a bit more expensive. It's a 6/9 cost power ratio, and it's going to get +5 power. This is your only card here, so potentially a 14 power card, if the only one in the zone there. So that's coming out. But the most important thing are going to be these nerfs and buffs. I'm going to admit the nerfs don't seem too nerfy. The buffs seem pretty decent, though. Arrow, Galactus, Leader, Nova getting nerfed, and a lot of that's calling out the decks that, I mean, probably not me, but a lot of you folks used to do your previous Infinite Climb for last Silver Surfer season. We'll talk about that. Drax, Groot, Hazmat, Black Cat, Nakia getting buffed as well. And there's an interesting bundle coming. I got a little excited. I had to reread it. I thought they were releasing 12,500 collector tokens. Like, wow, that's a lot. No, I misread that. They're releasing a pro bundle, allegedly, that's going to be for newer players. I wonder if they're going to offer to, more veteran players that have been around for a bit longer. 12,500 credits plus boosters to upgrade 8 common cards to infinity. So giving you a big, massive boost through your collection level to try to get access to those other cards in the later pulls down the road here. And then collector tokens pay out for players who completed Series 3 cards. It'll be between 200 to 600 rather than a fixed 400 amount. I don't know the drop rates. If it's maybe very frequent 200, maybe it was a very frequent 600. I don't know what the drop rates were before. 400 is kind of smack dab in the middle. So at least I think the point is, you know there's a predictable climb when it comes to your accrual amount for the collector token. So I have to go back. I actually don't know what the drop rates were, the 200 to 600. If it was a lot of 200s, it's a good change. If you had a good chance at 500, 600, might be a bad change. I'm going to say it's probably just, it's a net neutral change here. So let's go check out this stuff here. So artist credits, we already kind of briefly mentioned it. You can now view the illustrator's information by clicking on the variant name above the card in the collection. I think it's a nice little call. You want to give credit to where credit's due, and maybe want to check out more of their artwork here. Mostly filtering stuff. And now if the section where multiple cards trigger each other is too long, by the time it takes to finish the loop automatically increases. I mean, Wong, Onslaught, Mystic, Ironheart. Yes, it takes a long time for those combos to pull up sometimes here. For new players, here's where that pro bundle comes in. For new players who want to get started right away, we are releasing a pro bundle available for a one-time purchase only. I'm not sure how much they're going to charge for it. Includes 12,500 credits plus boosters, upgrade 8 common cards to infinity. So we already talked about that. And we already talked about the change to the collector tokens. Let's get to the balance update. I think what most of us want to talk about here. So I sat down with Mobile Gamer. We were talking what cards we use, what cards are very prevalent, decks, and all that stuff for the climb to infinite for last season. The ones that we brought up were Arrow, Galactus, Leader, and I think those are pretty much the main 3 that we brought up. Well, they are addressing them. They did mention that Leader and Galactus are on the watch list, meaning that there's a good chance they're going to get a nerf. Well, they did nerf it, but let's read it. It's not what they didn't really. It's not really addressing why these cards are so good. So Arrow, still a 5-cost card, but instead of being 8 power, it's 7 power. The developer said Arrow's effectiveness is great for both obstruction and control. Previously, we increased the Arrow stats to where it is now, but since players have realized how to use it, we thought it might be a good idea to lower the power a little bit. So here's the thing with Arrow and Leader. Turn 5 is incredibly important because if you're going into turn 6 and you're already winning, all you gotta do is place an arrow and you're gonna move that card into a zone that you're already gonna win, or maybe you lost, but it's not that important for the win. I mean, this might be a card that maybe a reduction of 1 power could make a difference, because the point of Arrow is when you're dragging a card over, you want to make sure she's got a good amount of power that kind of overrides or at least helps you keep up with whatever card you're dragging over. So might make a difference. It's really the ability, not so much the power, that was important. Let's talk about Galactus. That was the deck that I used to help myself climb up. And boy, I made some really huge progress. And I said, guys, this is like a really good winning rate deck. And I guess the developers agreed. So Galactus, still a 6 cost card, but instead of 3 power, it's going to be 2 power. And this, I feel like, is a bit more of a substantial nerf than Arrow, for example, because with Galactus, when you're blitzing, you want to make sure you have as much power on him or whatever cards are coming over. So usually people do like Nova Wolverine, and Wolverine comes over to help out. And you need every little power possible to make sure you're winning that zone. So this could maybe have a bit more of a substantial effect Arrow. I guess I'll find out, because that's been one of the decks I've been rocking. Even at the highest rank play, decks using Galactus have huge cube gains and win rate, and that is what I felt. Literally, once I got Galactus and then Death, afterwards, I went from like the 70s and I blasted my way to 89 so dang fast with that deck. Some decks, and here's the thing about it, and I said this, playing Galactus, I kind of know when I saw like 1 or 2 folks playing and I was able to mess them up a little bit. Some decks don't explicitly announce that Galactus will be coming, meaning you don't expect it until it happens. You never expect the Inquisition, kind of one of those things. And there will be plenty of support cards that some decks find difficult to counter. We're going to lower Galactus power by 1 and then reevaluate if further changes are needed. So again, I could still run the Death combo. You know, the whole point is to try to destroy as many cards. So Death is free, and then you can place Hulk or whatever the case, if you have another high-powered card to back him up, and you can still have like 24 power on that final blitz on a particular zone. But I think that's one of the things I like about Galactus is usually my opponent doesn't know that I got a big plan up my sleeve to destroy the other zones and focus on one zone. So this, I feel like, is a little bit more impactful than Arrow, just because you need every little power possible to get the win. So we'll see. Leader, this is the one where I see some folks saying it's massive. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. 6-4, 6 cost, 4 power from before, now being a 3 powered card. Let's read their notes first. Many players are thinking about Leader's effectiveness, and the ability to stop the game and make it difficult to play other 6 cost cards has been often a mixed bag. It is a horrible feeling when you lose to a Leader. I've been there, you've been there, you've also used Leader, I've also used Leader. We have been on both sides of the spectrum. I'm going to lower the power a bit and see if further modifications are needed later. So here's the thing about Leader, kind of like we talked about Arrow. With Leader, there's 2 win scenarios for the most part. You know, sometimes you get scrubbed. You might pull out a destroyer and ruin everything, but more often than not, what happens with Leader is you either want to be winning 2 zones and you know you're going to win most likely, or you're going to win a zone, they're winning a zone, and maybe you're tied in a zone, or you know that Leader's power will put you over whatever their current score is, and then you just copy whatever cards they have, and then you win. So I think what they're trying to do here is they're trying to make that a little bit less. So instead of knowing, hey, they have a 7 and power in one zone, I have a 4, all I gotta play is Leader and I'll be over their 7 power and I'm gonna win. Now you're gonna have 1 less power to work with, so if they have maybe 7 in a zone, you need to make sure you have at least like 5 power in a zone. So I think that's all they're really working on. I don't think that's gonna make a huge change. The problem with the Leader is what the ability does, not so much the power that he places onto the field by himself. Now we'll have to wait and see. Maybe it's going to make a bit more of a difference just because, you know, missing out on 1 power means it's going to be a little bit harder to make sure you're staying ahead before you copy all their cards. I don't know. My hunch is if Leader's been annoying, I don't think this is going to make it that much less annoying. It's the ability, not so much the power. I mean, even if this was a 6-1, I still think it'd be very much used. It's just copying everyone's card. It's a 1. It's basically what it's doing. It's like a 1 card for potentially 2, 3, 4, 5 cards that your enemy's gonna be playing. You know what I mean? Nova, I wasn't expecting this. My guess is that maybe it's because of the Galactus thing. You know, you place Nova, and then, or it could be before just general destroy decks. You know, sometimes, I mean, that wouldn't even matter then. I think, yeah, you know, I don't know. Again, it's the ability that's important, not so much the power it's throwing down. Nova's effect is much stronger than any one cost card. I do agree. Being able to juice up everyone's power by one is nice for a one cost card. So we didn't think it was appropriate for Nova to have the average stats of a one cost card. So that's their line of reasoning to it. Again, I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference for the power. It's now a 1 power instead of 2 power. All that's, because generally Nova's going to be destroyed. Usually Nova's not on the field. Usually got Killmonger or Carnage, or Galactus destroys the zone and Nova just feeds the power over there. So not a huge nerf. But here's where we get into some buffs, and this is kind of curious. Zabu's here. I haven't gotten around to showing some Zabu stuff that I've been doing, but Zabu is a card that basically halves the cost of your 4 power cards, or 4 cost cards. It's kind of a big deal, and Drax is a 4 cost card. So seeing that it's inevitably going to be a buff here, it's kind of surprising. So Drax is seeing a lot of action lately, but before, what would happen is it would be a 4 power, 4 cost card, and on reveal, if an opponent played a card in the zone, you get 4 power. So it potentially hit 8, but sometimes your opponent doesn't play a card and you don't get to the 8. What they're doing now is they're slightly increasing the base power. So even in the situation your opponent doesn't play a card, you're still playing a 4/5 card, which is still a decent deal, or 2/5 with Zabu. So now if an opponent has played a card in the zone, you get 3 power. So the end goal, if an opponent plays a card where Drax is going, it's going to be 8 power, but it's mostly addressing the situations where there is no card the enemy played. You're going to get 5. So that's where the buff is coming from. Groot also getting a similar treatment here. Before it was a 3/3, and if an opponent played a card, it would get 3 power, so end up at 6 power in that situation. Now it's going to be a 3 cost 4 powered card, so it's not getting the Zabu treatment. Unfortunately, it's not a 4 cost card. But now if your opponent plays a card where Groot is going, you get 2 power. So still the end goal is going to be 6. But the point is, when you're playing these cards, they still putting some decent power down for their cost, even if they don't place anything on the opponent's side. So kind of interesting stuff here. So let's read what they said. While you may think the Guardians effects will create a lot of fun, it can also feel like an all or nothing game. And I agree with that. I think that's why a lot of people don't play with them, because if you don't get the effects, they're a little bit annoying. We hope to increase Drax and Groot's base stats to lower the risk of playing cards and increase their attractiveness into 3/4 cost slots. I think if that's their goal, I think that's a good step in the right direction. I think Drax is going to see a lot more attention just because of Zabu going around right now. And some other stuff here. This was interesting. Hazmat. I recently got Hazmat. I kind of wish I had Wong and Luke Cage to really get the full effect of this. I haven't, so I haven't been able to play, but I have seen some really fun combos. So they increased the power from a 2/1 to 2/2. Let's putting a little bit more power in the field. I don't know if that is a huge boost. We know there are some powerful looking Hazmat combo decks, but Hazmat's overall performance is not good. So in this update, we want to raise it slightly. I don't know if that's going to really change much. It's just a little bit of increase in power. We'll have to wait and see. I would love to try out this a bit more. I just don't have the right cards to put out. Black Cat. Yeah, Black Cat isn't really all that interesting unless you're playing a discard deck. Now, in case if you don't know what Black Cat does, if this is in your hand at the end of your turn, you discard it. So they're increasing the power, but all right. It's a 364, 3 cost, 6 power. Now they're making it 3/7. The problem still comes, not all people are using, because it's not really that helpful unless you're playing a discard deck, or I don't even know if Ghost Rider pulling her out is really that lucrative of an idea. She's really just there to maybe, just to get maybe Morbius up and running, just discarding as much as possible. But they say since Black Cat is rarely used, we wanted to increase its attractiveness by increasing the power. Okay. I don't know if that's going to make a huge deal. Again, the problem is if you don't get her, or if it's too early and you can't play her, it's not going to be a lot of fun. So I think she's a very niche card, I think is what the problem is. Nakia, I believe Nakia got a lot of treatment back and forth in the past. Now they're bringing her to a 3/2, 3 power, 3 cost, 2 power, whereas before she was just a 1 power. We think Nakia's effects is an interesting mechanic. I think so too. But it currently has a very low success rate. We want to buff it up to make it a bit more of an attractive option. Again, they're just increasing the power. Yeah, I think the problem is if you don't have the right cards on the left middle side, you're not going to get much use out of it. So it's a very situational card. Again, I don't know. A lot of their buffs and nerfs have been mostly power adjustments. I think it's a lot of them. They need ability adjustments potentially. So, like if Nakia increased everyone's power in their hand by 2, that would be kind of interesting. It's kind of like the Wakandan Embassy almost. All right. A little bit more interesting. And then they have just a couple of bug fixes now. For example, Professor X and Oscorp Tower, the card will not change sides. So I don't think that's a very common thing, but it's nonetheless. They updated some text for the Wrath and Vibranium Ives. And they also, this is actually kind of nice. They are apparently decreasing the chance of Warriors Falls appearing. So if you haven't seen, there's a card in the top right hand corner. We ranked all the locations of Marvel Snap, and Warrior Falls, I don't think it's as annoying as Ego or Weird World, whatever the case might be. It's still one of those zones that's not a lot of fun. I mean, there are ways to utilize, like we talked about, for example, throwing Deadpool in there and just have Deadpool farm themselves into a higher and higher and higher powered card, or throwing an Electro and letting Electro be destroyed. So there are ways to utilize it, unlike Ego and Weird World, where you can't do really much about it except changing the zone in its entirety. But that's gonna be kind of it for today. Let me know what you think down below. I think I'm mostly interested in, are these effective buffs? Are these going to be effective nerfs? I feel like the buffs are going to be a bit more effective than the nerfs. I think the one that's going to be most impactful is that Galactus. Every little power for Galactus does count. So we'll have to wait and see. Thank you all for stopping by. It's always great having you in the greatest empire that ever existed, my friends. Leave that like, comment down below, and all your beautiful thoughts. And be sure to subscribe so you're not missing a thing. And always remember that it's great to be in the empire today.
Oh, it's great to be in the empire today. The sun never sets.